Stop scrolling for a second. Your life didn't fall apart in one day. It fell apart in the small decisions you've been making quietly every single day. And the truth is, the same small choices can rebuild it if you decide differently right now. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. Your life didn't fall apart overnight. It didn't collapse in one dramatic moment. There was no single day where everything broke. It happened quietly. It happened slowly. It happened through tiny choices repeated. One decision to sleep a little later. One decision to say, I'll start tomorrow. One decision to tolerate something you knew you shouldn't. One decision to walk past what needed to be fixed. And those small decisions didn't look dangerous. They looked harmless. They felt comfortable. They felt normal. That's the trap. Because the most dangerous changes in your life don't arrive like storms. They arrive like habits. See, nobody wakes up and says, today, I will ruin my future. They wake up and say, just today, I'll let it slide. And then tomorrow, they say it again, and again, and again. Until one day, they look at their life and think, how did I get here? You didn't get here by accident. You trained for this. Every habit you practice is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every excuse you repeat is a brick in the life you're building. And listen closely, small decisions don't feel powerful in the moment, but they are powerful over time. A little neglect becomes a lot of regret. A little discipline becomes a lot of freedom. A little courage becomes a whole new identity. The direction of your life is shaped in ordinary moments. What you eat when you're tired, what you watch when you're bored, what you do when nobody is watching, what you say when things get uncomfortable. These moments don't seem important, but they are deciding everything. You don't drift into a great life, you drift into chaos. Growth is intentional, decline is automatic. If you don't choose your future, your habits will choose it for you. And here's the part that should wake you up. The same way your life slowly broke down is the same way it can be rebuilt. Not with one giant breakthrough, not with one emotional speech, not with one perfect Monday morning, but with one better decision, repeated. One choice to get up when it's hard. One choice to speak truth instead of comfort. One choice to stop feeding what's destroying you. One choice to start feeding what strengthens you. Rebuilding doesn't start with motivation. It starts with awareness. Awareness that your future is being designed by what you do today, not by what you promise, not by what you plan, by what you practice. You don't need to change everything. You need to change something and do it consistently, because consistency is louder than intensity. Anyone can change for a day. Few people change for a year, but the ones who do don't look for miracles. They look for patterns. They ask, what am I doing daily that's creating the life I don't want? And then they do something radical. They change the pattern. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait to feel confident. They don't wait for life to get easier. They decide. And that decision doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers in the morning when the alarm goes off. It whispers when temptation shows up. It whispers when fear says, stay the same. And every time you listen to that whisper, you move your life in a new direction. Not fast, not flashy, but forward. Because the truth is, your life is not collapsing. It is responding. Responding to what you tolerate. Responding to what you repeat. Responding to what you accept as normal. And the moment you change what you repeat, everything begins to change with it. Let's talk about the moment everything actually changes. Not when life gets easier. Not when the pain goes away. Not when someone rescues you. It changes when excuses stop working. Because as long as you have an excuse, you have permission to stay the same. I didn't have time. I didn't have support. I didn't get the chance. I wasn't born with the right situation. Those sound reasonable. They sound logical. They sound safe. But they are also chains. See, excuses protect your comfort, but they steal your future. They make you feel better today, while making sure tomorrow looks exactly like yesterday. And here's the hard truth most people avoid. You can be right about your excuses, or you can be powerful, but you cannot be both. The day you rebuild your life is the day you stop asking, who's to blame? And start asking, what's my move? Because blame keeps you small, and ownership makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Ownership doesn't mean your past was fair. It doesn't mean people didn't hurt you. It doesn't mean life didn't deal you bad cards. It means you stop waiting for permission to become who you were meant to be. It means you say, this is my life and no one is coming to live it for me. That's not pressure, that's freedom. Because when you own your situation, you also own your ability to change it. As long as you believe your life is controlled by your past, by your parents, by your mistakes, by your environment, you will live like a prisoner in a cell with the door unlocked. Rebuilding your life starts when you take back that power. Not with anger, not with blame, but with responsibility. Responsibility is not heavy, it is empowering. It says, I may not have caused everything, but I will fix what I can. And when you do that, something inside you wakes up. You stop waiting to be motivated, and you start moving with purpose. You stop saying, I hope it changes. And you start saying, I will change. That shift is everything. Because the person who blames is always waiting for conditions, waiting for people, waiting for luck. But the person who owns moves with what they have, right where they are. They say, I may not control the past, but I control the next step. And that next step becomes the next habit, and that habit becomes the next identity. Rebuilding your life is not about fixing everything at once. It's about choosing differently when the old excuse shows up. When the voice says, I'm too tired, you answer, then I will start tired. When the voice says, it's too late, you answer, then now is perfect. When the voice says, it's not my fault, you answer, but it is my responsibility. That's how a new life begins, not with a miracle, but with a mindset. And here's the strange part. Ownership doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. You stop being the victim of the story, and you become the author. You stop reacting, and you start directing. You don't beg life to change, you train yourself to change. And as you do, your standards rise, your habits sharpen, your confidence grows. Not because things are perfect, but because you are in control again. That's rebuilding. Not pretending the past didn't happen, but refusing to let it decide the future. The moment excuses end and ownership begins is the moment your life stops drifting and starts moving forward. Most people think they need a new life, a new city, a new job, a new relationship, a new set of circumstances. But what they really need is a new set of standards, because your life will never rise above the standards you accept. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. If you tolerate being late, you get a late life. If you tolerate poor health, you get a weak body. If you tolerate weak effort, you get weak results. It isn't chance that shapes your future. It's what you decide is acceptable. Most people say, I want more, but their standards say, I'll settle. They want better health, but accept poor habits. They want better income, but accept average effort. They want better relationships, but accept poor communication. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Here's the truth. Change doesn't come from wishing. It comes from deciding that something is no longer okay. Progress begins the day you say, this is not how I live anymore. Not because someone forced you, not because life demanded it, but because you did. Your standards are the invisible rules that run your life. They decide what you will allow, what you will refuse, what you will improve, what you will ignore. And the danger is this, you can slowly lower them without even noticing. You start saying, it's fine, it's not that bad, at least it's better than before. And little by little, your standards slip and your life follows them down. You don't need to change everything. You need to change what you accept. You don't need a new personality, you need a new policy. A new policy about your time, a new policy about your health, a new policy about your effort, a new policy about the way you speak to yourself. Because the day you raise your standards is the day your results must rise to meet them. If you decide, I no longer accept being careless with my time, your behavior will change. If you decide, I no longer accept weak effort, your discipline will grow. If you decide, I no longer accept staying where I am, your actions will demand improvement. Your life will only change when you do, not when you feel inspired, not when conditions are perfect, not when everything lines up. But when your standards change, you see, motivation is temporary, standards are permanent. Motivation gets you started, standards keep you going. When your standards are low, you need constant motivation. When your standards are high, you don't negotiate with yourself. You simply do what is required. You don't wait for energy. You follow your standard. You don't wait for confidence. You follow your standard. You don't wait for approval. You follow your standard, and slowly your identity begins to change. You no longer say, "I'll try." You say, "This is how I live." You no longer say, "I hope." You say, "I expect." Not because you are arrogant, but because you are committed. Rebuilding your life does not begin with a dramatic move. It begins with a quiet decision, a decision about what you will no longer accept. No longer accept wasting your potential. No longer accept weak excuses. No longer accept staying in places that drain your future. You don't need a new life. You need a higher demand on yourself. And that demand will shape your habits. Your habits will shape your character. And your character will shape your destiny. When you raise your standards, you raise your life. Not all at once, not overnight, but step by step. Because the best day of your life is not the day something lucky happens. It is the day you decide to live at a higher level. Most people think discipline is punishment. They think it is something you suffer through, something you force yourself to do, something that takes away your freedom. But discipline is not punishment. Discipline is proof. Proof that you respect yourself enough to do what is necessary. You see, every day you are practicing something. You are either practicing discipline or you are practicing neglect. And whichever one you practice is shaping your future. Neglect says, "I'll take care of it later." Discipline says, "I will take care of it now." Neglect says, "It doesn't matter today." Discipline says, "It matters every day." That difference is the difference between a life that improves and a life that slowly falls apart. Self-respect is not what you say about yourself. It is what you do for yourself. It is the way you treat your time, the way you treat your body, the way you treat your promises. If you make a promise to yourself and break it, what happens? You lose trust in yourself. And when you lose trust in yourself, everything becomes harder. But when you keep small promises, your confidence grows quietly and your future becomes stronger. Discipline is the bridge between knowing and doing. Many people know what to do, but very few do what they know. They know they should read, but they don't. They know they should save, but they don't. They know they should practice, but they don't. They know they should change, but they wait. And waiting is costly. The price of discipline is effort. The price of neglect is regret. And regret is always heavier. Discipline does not require heroics. It requires habits. Small acts done daily, without drama, without excuses, without needing applause. Getting up when you said you would, doing the work when no one is watching, choosing wisely when no one is forcing you. That is self-respect in motion. You cannot talk your way into a better life. You must behave your way into one. And discipline is the language your actions speak. If you respect yourself, you will prepare. If you respect yourself, you will practice. If you respect yourself, you will protect your future from careless decisions. Most people are not lazy, they are untrained. They have not trained themselves to do the small things that make the big difference. They wait for feeling, but discipline does not wait for feeling. Discipline creates feeling. Action comes first, emotion follows. When you act with discipline, you begin to feel stronger, more capable, more certain. And when you feel stronger, you act even better. It is a powerful cycle, and it begins with one decision to do what should be done, even when it is inconvenient. You don't have to be extreme. You have to be consistent. Consistency builds character, and character builds destiny. A disciplined life is not a restricted life. It is a directed life. You stop being pulled by every mood, every impulse, every distraction. You begin to move by purpose, by values, by intention. And that changes everything, because the person with discipline does not drift. They choose. They choose when to rest. They choose when to work. They choose what to eat. They choose what to allow into their mind. And each choice is a message to the future. It says, "I care about what I am becoming." That is self-respect, not pride, not ego, not noise. Quiet strength shown in daily decisions, the kind no one applauds, but everyone eventually notices. Discipline is not something you wait for, it is something you practice. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Until one day, it is no longer something you force, it is simply how you live. And when that happens, your life begins to reflect the respect you have for yourself. Your past is not a prison, it is a classroom. Most people look back and see only mistakes. They see wasted years. They see poor decisions. They see things they wish they could erase. But life does not give lessons without purpose. Everything that happened to you taught you something. Every failure showed you what does not work. Every disappointment revealed what matters. Every difficult season developed a strength you did not know you had. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that they refuse to learn. You cannot change where you have been, but you can change what it means. If you carry your past as a burden, it will weigh you down. If you carry it as wisdom, it will lift you up. Experience is valuable, but only if it is examined. An unexamined life repeats itself. A studied life improves itself. Some people use the past as an excuse. They say, I was hurt. I was ignored. I was raised this way. I made too many mistakes. And then they stop. But the wiser person says, now I know better. Now I see clearer. Now I can choose differently. Your past did not trap you. It prepared you. It showed you what happens when you neglect discipline. It showed you what happens when you follow poor advice. It showed you what happens when you settle for less than you can become. Those lessons were not free. They cost you time. They cost you energy. They cost you emotion. But if you learn from them, they will not be wasted. You do not have to relive your mistakes to benefit from them. You only have to remember what they taught you. Mistakes are not final unless you refuse to change. Failure is not fatal unless you decide to stay there. The past can be used in two ways: as a weapon against yourself or as a tool for improvement. The weapon says, you failed once, so you will fail again. The tool says, you failed once, so now you know what to fix. The difference is attitude. Attitude determines whether experience becomes wisdom or becomes bitterness. Bitterness says, this should not have happened. Wisdom says, this will make me better. Life is generous with lessons, but strict with tests. It will test what you have learned. If you do not learn from poor health, you will repeat it. If you do not learn from poor money habits, you will repeat them. If you do not learn from poor relationships, you will repeat them. The future is built from the lessons of the past, and the person who refuses to learn is condemned to repeat. Your past has given you information about your habits, your choices, your discipline, your thinking. That information is priceless. It tells you where to improve, not where to quit. You are not behind, you are in training. You are not broken, you are being shaped. A scar is not proof of weakness, it is proof of survival, and survival brings understanding. You know now what pain feels like, what regret costs, what neglect produces. That knowledge can guide your next decision if you allow it. Do not curse your past, consult it. Do not live in it, learn from it. You cannot build a better future without understanding the road behind you. Your past has already paid the tuition. The question is, will you collect the education? Every year of difficulty was preparing you for a better year. Every wrong turn was showing you the right one. Every setback was building the strength for the next step forward. You are not starting over, you are starting wiser. And wisdom is a powerful advantage. The past does not define you unless you let it. It only trains you if you use it. And the best use of yesterday is to make a better tomorrow. Not by regret, but by responsibility. Not by shame, but by growth. Not by running, but by rising. Your past was not a cage, it was a lesson. And the moment you learn from it, it releases you. Comfort is a pleasant place to live, but nothing grows there. Most people arrange their lives around what feels easy, what feels familiar, what feels safe. And then they wonder why nothing improves. Comfort does not demand effort. It does not ask questions. It does not require change. It simply says, stay as you are. But every time you choose comfort over discipline, you make a quiet trade. You trade strength for ease. You trade growth for rest. You trade tomorrow for today. And at first, that trade feels harmless. Sleeping a little longer, postponing the hard task, avoiding the difficult conversation, choosing the easy habit instead of the right one. One choice does not ruin a life, but a pattern does. Comfort is not dangerous because it feels good. It is dangerous because it feels normal. It slowly becomes your standard. You begin to accept what once would have bothered you. You begin to tolerate what once would have challenged you. You begin to settle where once you would have stretched. And the price of that settling is paid later. Later in poor health, later in limited opportunity. later in regret. Discomfort, on the other hand, has a purpose. It is the signal that something is changing. It is the sign that something is improving. It is the evidence that you are leaving the old behind. Discomfort is the companion of growth. You feel it when you begin to discipline your time. You feel it when you change your habits. You feel it when you speak differently. You feel it when you demand more of yourself. That feeling does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are doing something new. Comfort keeps you where you are. Discomfort moves you where you could be. The body grows stronger only when it is challenged. The mind grows wiser only when it is stretched. Character grows deeper only when it is tested. Nothing improves in ease. Everything improves in effort. Most people avoid discomfort because they confuse it with danger. But discomfort is not danger, it is instruction. It says, this is unfamiliar, this is demanding, this is different. And different is the doorway to better. If you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always gotten. Comfort protects habits. Discomfort changes them. Comfort preserves the past. Discomfort builds the future. You cannot grow without leaving something behind. Old routines, old excuses, old ways of thinking. That departure is uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar. But unfamiliar is not wrong. It is simply undeveloped. The farmer understands this principle. He does not leave the soil untouched and expect a harvest. He breaks the ground. He disturbs it. He plants into it. And only then does growth occur. So it is with your life. If you never disturb your routine, you will never discover your capacity. If you never challenge your comfort, you will never uncover your potential. Comfort asks little and gives little. Discomfort asks much and gives much. The discipline you avoid today becomes the problem you face tomorrow. The effort you invest today becomes the freedom you enjoy later. Most people do not fail because life is hard. They fail because comfort is easy. They choose the chair instead of the walk. They choose the screen instead of the book. They choose the excuse instead of the effort. And those small choices become a large result. The person who chooses discomfort for the sake of improvement will eventually arrive at a place of confidence. Not because life became easier, but because they became stronger. Growth is uncomfortable, change is uncomfortable, improvement is uncomfortable. But regret is heavier than all of them combined. Comfort costs little today and much tomorrow. Discipline costs something today and saves much tomorrow. And the future always belongs to the person who was willing to be uncomfortable now. Your life is being shaped every day, not by what you dream about, but by what you do repeatedly. The greatest force in your life is not luck, not talent, not circumstance. It is habit. A habit is an idea made permanent by repetition. What you practice, you become. What you do occasionally has little effect. What you do consistently becomes your character. Most people wait for a big change, a sudden breakthrough, a dramatic moment. But life rarely changes that way. It changes through routines, quiet actions, ordinary choices, done again and again. A few minutes of reading each day becomes knowledge. A few minutes of exercise becomes strength. A few minutes of planning becomes direction. Small habits create large outcomes. The danger is not one poor decision. The danger is a poor pattern. A single careless meal does not ruin health, but careless eating as a habit will. A single wasted hour does not destroy a career, but wasted time as a habit will. Habits are like roots. They grow underground before they show above the surface. For a long time, you see no result, and then suddenly, you see the harvest. Good habits make life easier. Bad habits make life harder. Discipline in daily life creates freedom over time. Neglect in daily life creates limits over time. You cannot escape the law of practice. Whatever you practice gets stronger. If you practice excuses, you become skilled at quitting. If you practice effort, you become skilled at progress. If you practice learning, you become skilled at improvement. You become what you rehearse. That is why success is not an event. It is a routine. It is the practice of the right actions at the right time for the right reasons. Habits work quietly. They do not announce themselves. They do not demand attention. They simply shape your future. You may not notice a small habit today, but your future will. Every habit is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. You are casting those votes with your actions every single day. Your habits are either taking you toward your goals or away from them. There is no neutral routine. You do not wake up one day and become successful. You wake up and practice. What makes success possible? The person who reads while others relax, the person who saves while others spend, the person who practices while others postpone. These people do not have a different life, they have a different routine. The smallest disciplines create the biggest differences. 10 minutes a day in the right direction is more powerful than 10 hours once in a while. Consistency is stronger than intensity. Intensity burns bright and then fades. Consistency builds and then lasts. That is why you do not need a new environment. You need a new pattern. You do not need a new calendar. You need new commitments. Inside the calendar you have, if you change your habits, you change your direction. If you change your direction, you change your destination. Your life will always move in the direction of your most practiced behavior. The future is not decided by what you intend. It is decided by what you repeat. Repetition creates identity. You no longer say, I am trying. You say, this is what I do. You no longer hope for a better life. You build one through routine. Your habits are shaping your future, whether you are paying attention or not. And the wise person does not leave that to chance. They choose what they practice. They choose what they repeat. They choose what becomes permanent. Because in the end, you will not be rewarded for what you wanted to do. You will be rewarded for what you did consistently. The moment you decide differently, everything begins to shift. It is not a grand event. It is not a sudden miracle. It is a quiet decision that stirs the soul and sets the mind in motion. Most people drift through life waiting for the perfect circumstances, waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for someone to come and fix it for them. And while they wait, life passes them by. But the moment you decide differently, you take responsibility. You take ownership of your future. You refuse to be a victim of past mistakes or of the circumstances you were handed. It begins with a single thought. I will not settle for less than I am capable of. And then it grows into a feeling of burning inside that says, I will act. You will feel fear. You will feel uncertainty. You will feel the weight of the unknown. That is natural. Growth never comes without discomfort. But discomfort is not a warning sign. It is a signal that you are moving forward. The decision to act differently changes your habits. It changes your routines. It changes your way of thinking. Because action precedes feeling. Action precedes confidence. You cannot wait to feel ready. You become ready by doing. The person who chooses differently gets up when the alarm rings. They speak differently. They think differently. They refuse the easy path, and they take the path that builds them. Every decision you make is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every choice either strengthens or weakens you. Every action either moves you closer or moves you farther from the life you want. Most people underestimate the power of small decisions. They think that only big moves change life. But life is not changed by one act of courage. It is changed by thousands of small decisions done consistently. The decision to change is not always public. It does not require applause or acknowledgement. It is made in the silence of your mind, in the moments when no one is watching, in the choices you make when you are tired, when you are frustrated, when the world is quiet and nothing is forcing you to act. That is when character is built. That is when momentum begins. That is when life starts to respond. You cannot rebuild your life overnight. You cannot erase the past, but you can begin again today in the choices you make. Decide differently in your thoughts, and your emotions will follow. Decide differently in your words, and your conversations will change. Decide differently in your actions, and your habits will change. And before long, you will notice the difference. Your circumstances may not have changed yet, but you have changed. Your mindset has shifted. Your energy has shifted. Your readiness has shifted. The world responds to those who act. The universe aligns with those who refuse to remain stuck. Opportunity meets preparation. Blessings follow action. Results follow decisions. It is simple in concept, but not easy in practice. The decision must be repeated. The commitment must be daily. You will stumble. You will falter. But the person who decides differently does not give up after the first failure. They get up again. They start over. They keep moving forward. And with each step, they rebuild their life. Not because life owes them something, but because they owe it to themselves. The power is not in luck. The power is not in chance. The power is in choice. And the moment you decide differently, you take back the power that belongs to you and set the foundation for everything that follows. Your life is not a product of chance. It is a reflection of your choices, your habits, and the standards you set for yourself. The past is not a prison. It is a teacher. Your comfort zone is not a friend. It is a trap. And excuses are not protection. They are chains. If you want a better future, it will not arrive on its own. It will not appear in a perfect moment. It will appear the moment you decide to take responsibility, to raise your standards, to practice discipline, to act differently, even when it is uncomfortable. Every small decision matters. Every habit compounds. Every choice shapes the person you are becoming. The power to rebuild your life has always been in your hands. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Decide to honor yourself. Decide to do what is right. Decide to grow when it is hard. Decide to lead your life rather than drift through it. And one day, when you look back, you will not recognize the person you were, but you will be grateful because you built a life worth living, step by step, choice by choice, habit by habit. Your future self is already thanking you.